Welcome back. I am once again live streaming. What could possibly go wrong? But I want to talk about the second step in the pre-processing workflow, which is image calibration. So in the previous episode, if you will, I talked about the blink tool and cleaning up frames. The next thing we want to do is image calibrate. And let's look at why we need image calibration, and then we can talk about how. So this is the Sombrero Galaxy, and I'm going to go ahead and open my source images here, and I just grabbed 20 to keep this simple, straightforward. But if we blink these images, even though these are good images, what you're going to notice is that in the background we have these kind of permanent random pixels that aren't stars because the stars are moving with the frames. And so we need to do something about those. So what I'm going to do is pause this. And for me, with my Stellina, I have limited options. It doesn't really lend itself to master bias and some other concepts. So I'm going to leave those out of that for now. But I can do what's called darks, and darks are exposures that look like your regular exposures that you take, but where the lens is blocked from any light entering it. And if you look at my darks, which I'll go ahead and open, and we're just going to go to darks here. And all I did to capture these darks is I put a box that sized the right size over my telescope and let it continue taking captures with the box blocking out all light. And so what I end up with is something like this, where you can see the pixels are pretty fixed and then there's some random background noise. Well, this is the actual defects at the time and temperature of that recording. And it's important to note that as seasons change and as you capture in different temperatures and environments, the pixels are going to change, the defects are going to change. So you should take darks at least anytime those conditions change. So the first thing we want to do is integrate these into what's called a master dark, which is just taking the average of all the pixels and creating a single file. So I want to show you a couple things. I'm going to use image integration. This is what we use to integrate images or stack the images together. But I'm going to take advantage of this little strip over here on the right side, because this is a place where I can put some icons that I reuse. And when we're integrating for our darks, average is fine. We don't want normalization. We don't care about noise evaluation. And we really don't even need to evaluate noise. We just want a very straightforward, we're not rejecting pixels because these are the bad pixels that we're capturing. So I've got all of these defaults set. This little circle is going to run it. This is going to create a new instance. So if I drag this to the surface here, I can actually have an icon and I can click on this little N to rename it, and I'm going to call it Master II for Master Image Integration. And at the end of this, we'll save these icons so we can reload them for future steps. So that just gives me something reusable. So imagine I just am starting from scratch. I can open this and I have my defaults set for creating a master. So I'm going to grab all of my darks and I'm just going to click this to run it in the global context. And we'll get this little message here in the lower left. It's integrating the pixels. We've got rejection, but we turned off rejection, so this is going to be empty. And then we've got this image here. Let me move the process window so we can see this. And if we stretch it, you can see we have all these hot pixels. So let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to save it in the XISF format because that's the has the most information, data retention if you will. So we'll save that as master. I'm going to just keep all the defaults. Now I have a master that I can use for image calibration. So let's go to processes, image calibration. I'm going to reset this and let's walk through some of these. So the type of sensor I have creates this CFA. It's an array of pixel values that represent, and this will tell you basically they're mosaiced images, so we're going to have to demosaic them, and we'll talk about what that is. Essentially the RGB is in a grid in this file, so it's not actual true color, it's the intensity levels of the different color in a grid, and we use that to pre-process to a certain point, and then we turn it into a color image. So we're going to enable that, automatically detect it based on headers. I don't have a master bias, so I'm unchecking that, but I do have a master dark and I don't have a master flat. So this is my sort of starting point, so I'm going to go ahead and drag this down over here, and I'm going to edit the identifier, and I'm going to call this just IC for image calibration. So we'll just move that right up there. Now we're going to add our files, and these are the actual images, which are called lights. These are the ones that contain the signal for what we're looking to create. Then I'm going to come down for the output directory, and I like to have a different output directory for each step so I can revisit those steps. So what I'll do here is I'll just create a new folder called IC for image calibration. I'll select that. Now I have a place to put the images, and I'm going to pick my master dark. So I'm going to go here, go into darks, grab that master we created. Now this is very important. Optimize will actually optimize out the pixels we're trying to subtract. So we want this unchecked, and I should actually edit my icon. I'll do that in a minute, but we don't want optimize checked for our master, or it won't do what we intend. So with that all in place, we can go ahead and apply global. We can see down here it's working and calibrating the images. It gives us a notification, and this will run relatively quickly because there's only 20 images. And to show you the effect of this, I'm going to do a blink, and we'll reset the folders, and I'm going to add the originals first. Get those loaded. Then I'm going to add the calibrated ones, which are in this folder. And it's loading those. So you can see they're at the end. So let's look at this and watch what happens when we blink it. So you see hot pixels, then we hit the calibrated, and you can see all that white noise, all the background pixels. We still have some, and we're going to address these kind of little random ones you see in the background with cosmetic correction. But calibration is the first step into cleaning up these images, and you can see how nicely it works. Let's do one more thing, and that is open up our image calibration, uncheck optimize, drop this down. I'm just going to swap these out, so I'm going to delete this one, going to rename this one, and now I have reasonable defaults. And then the way I save these is I go to Process, Process Icons, Save Process Icons. I'm going to give it the name Deep Sky. And then in the future, when we start our workflow, I can use Deep Sky to open those icons and get to work.